Anything? Yeah. With
Thank you for tuning in. This is Anything and Everything with Matt, and I'm here today with Sam Hofstra, and he's been one of my long friends for, what, 6th grade I think I was in?
Oh, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but anyway, so he calls me the other day and tells me I have to watch this new show on Netflix called Jim and Andy, and it's about Jim Carrey and kind of his life and his come up and how he became famous. And he told me to watch it, and he wanted to discuss it with me and get my opinion on what I thought about it. So here we are tonight, talking about it.
Let's just start off by saying
spoiler alert.
Yeah. There will be some spoilers for sure. If you feel like you take anything away from this session, I would highly recommend going and watching this. I would even say stop listening to this right now, go watch it, and then come listen to this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, some powerful stuff in that. It's a documentary, and it's about Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey embodying the I want to say personality of Andy Kaufman, but I feel like he takes it further.
Yeah, he was
takes it further than that.
Yeah, he almost the whole time I was watching, I was like, damn, he's borderline. Has a dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah.
He's almost got multiple personalities.
I'm going to look that up real quick, what that type of acting is called, because I don't know off the top of my head.
He gets so lost into that character that he becomes annoying to people. Well, I guess to describe Andy Kaufman is he was this very unique character who...
He was an outcast in Hollywood. Outcast in Hollywood, yeah.
I mean, he was he had a different form of comedy that I don't really think was done before. He just didn't give a shit what anyone thought around him. And he was kind of like Jim Carrey. If you think of Jim Carrey in a way, it's kind of, but, not so extreme.
It's called, I just looked it up. It's called method acting, where actors don't break character. I think the most recent one was, what's his name? Jared Leto, yeah. For Suicide Squad, which was just a fucking pile of shit.
Didn't he send the cast members?
Yeah, Will Smith. I remember watching an interview with the whole cast. Did you watch interviews with him?
I know, but I think I've heard clips of it.
If you watch interviews when they were doing the promotional tours for Suicide Squad, Jared Leto was never in any of them. I don't know why. I don't want to say it was because there might have been maybe some animosity with him in the cast, but I heard he sent some fucked up shit to those people, the other actors.
You get lost in those characters and stuff. And I think if you're a vulnerable type of person...
Well, think about the shoes he had to fill, though.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're that type of person who could embody that type of character, because to be that type of person on screen, it's hard to go from hey, how's it going? My name's Matt, to psychopath, crazy person, or completely out of your shell, ordinary.
Right.
To be that type of person, it's probably easier to do that more all the time than it is to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it goes back, it roots back with actors that do it. I mean, if think about it, when you act, I did a little acting when I was younger. I mean, fucking. You're
pretending you're someone you're not.
Right. I mean, and that was fun. When you were younger, I mean, everybody did that. Everybody did play pretend or something like that, and that's ultimately what it is. I mean, there's definitely an art form to it, and there's a lot more, to acting than pretending to be somebody. I think there's more of an emotional, especially these guys that, Jared Leto, I think it was...
pretending to be somebody, but in every way possible. Be that person that they would be if you had all the experiences that person had to deal with. That character
you have to, yeah, exactly.
You have to embody that person's straight up emotional mind state. And to have that skill takes a certain... and some people, I feel get completely lost in that stuff.
Yeah, I actually got a list right here of people that have done that. Daniel Day-Lewis, I don't know if you know who that is, but... he's famous. I mean, There Will Be Blood. He's famous for doing method acting. I mean, he did not... There Will Be Blood. I think he did Lincoln and Gangs of New York. He didn't break character for any of those. I mean, he was known for that. I guess I was actually listening to a podcast a while ago about Daniel Day-Lewis and what he went through when he did... I forget what movie it was called, and shame on me for not knowing it, but he was so far into he went so far into the character off the screen that he actually had spinal problems. He developed health issues because he was
on posture and
right. The character he was the person he was portraying had some sort of disease or illness or what have you, and he actually stayed that way for the entire time of filming.
Jesus.
So he actually developed, I'm pretty sure he had some surgeries done on it, but then there was Christian Bale. I guess he did that for Dark Knight. Robert De Niro for Goodfellas. Heath Ledger, I think that's one of the biggest ones. He really didn't break character for the Joker. And then there's Jim Carrey, which is, I'm sure you know this. He did it for, obviously, Jim and Andy.
Yeah. So back to Jim and Andy then. So he was very, very lost. Like, for Jim's whole life, like, towards the end, how he was describing how he's very...
I was getting really emotional listening to that. Mm-hmm. By the way, the movie's called Man on the Moon. It came out in 1999.
The one that he was going to...
They released it.
They did, right?
Yeah, I thought in the show that they said they never released it because Universal said it made Jim Carrey look too much like an asshole. Mm-hmm. But I guess, I mean, they did release it. I'm going to actually try and catch it, but go ahead.
So, I guess first off, one of the good quotes I heard from Jim.
There's a lot of good stuff.
He was talking. He said, "Who do you know? You know, even when they're right in front of you."
Right.
Like he was talking about like who we are inside. I guess is so different than who we portray ourselves as.
Yeah.
And even if you think you know somebody, you really don't. And to think that we're all like living in these fake personas of ourselves or people we want to be or like these images that we think we have to be can really have a number on a lot of people and could be maybe why a lot of people are so unsatisfied or unhappy.
I think that's something that, like, me personally, I know I struggle with that. I think when I had my band, my metal band back in the day, we wrote a song. It was one of the I hate the song. I hate it, but one of the lines was "Take your mask off and look in her eyes." I don't remember the rest, but the line was "Take your mask off" because the whole song was about just putting on a front so that so you could satisfy the people. You know what I mean? About putting on a front so people would see what they wanted to see, not what you wanted them to see, not who you were. I think I've struggled with that a lot too, and we're all still growing up a lot, and we have a lot of growing left to do. So
I used to say this quote that I made up: "True self suppressed by ego." You know, like your ego completely suppresses who you really are inside.
Yeah. And
like then that's why so many people wake up with jobs or in places in life and they aren't happy with. Or
right. That's my biggest fear in life.
How the fuck did I get to this point?
That's my biggest fear in life.
I see that all the time. Because you weren't doing what made you happy. Yeah. It's because you weren't following what made you happy. And I don't know. Do you think Andy Kaufman was funny? I do. I want to say I understand him. I understand the humor. But I don't think I truly understand him. I don't think anybody understood him. I don't think Jim Carrey really understood him. I feel like he was funny at the time when nothing like that was happening. Now there's so many weirdos like that.
Andy Kaufman spawned comedies such as The Office. I just keep going back to The Office.
Just like that dry humor.
It's that awkward situational humor that's like really like I love The Office. For those of you who don't know me, I have watched The Office. I think you do too.
Yeah, I watched it.
When I finished The Office, I started over, and then I watch a series in between that, and then I go back to it, and then I go start another series where I watch a movie, and then I go back to it. I probably watched The Office.
I've watched like 6
I'm talking like every season at least 9 or 10 times.
Yeah, I've seen a lot.
So Andy Kaufman spawned comedies like that. That's like situational humor because he was a Hollywood outcast. You know, he did everything he wasn't supposed to do. And I don't think he did that on purpose. I just think he just didn't care. Because if you watch, like, in the show, his group of friends, like his closest friends, managers, girlfriend, or what have you, when he said he had lung cancer, spoiler alert, Andy Kaufman gets lung cancer, sorry. Like, they were all like, okay, Andy, this isn't funny anymore. That's not, you don't joke about that. That's not funny. Like, he didn't have a line, you know what I mean? He would constantly just push everybody as far as they could, and as soon as he said he had lung cancer, they were like, "What? Okay, this is the line. We're not. This is it. We're not taking any further." It's like, no, I really have lung cancer, and it took them days to realize he wasn't kidding. Like that was Andy Kaufman's humor. Andy Kaufman never got out of character. He created these characters just out of nowhere. I don't personally know. I'm sure somebody listening to this probably knows way more about Andy Kaufman than I do. But as far as I know, he created these characters, and then he just stayed in these characters. So I think that method acting truly, truly came about with Andy Kaufman. At least I don't know of anybody else doing it before then. I'm sure there were, but I think that like spawned actors like Jim Carrey that just wanted to be wild. You remember watching in that show, like when he would go on set, like he would do interviews, and he was drunk on that one interview. Well, he said he was drunk, and then he said, "I ought to hit you, you black bastard." Mm-hmm. And like his manager is sitting in the back, like, "Oh my God, he went too far. He went too far this time.
His career was gonna be over."
Yeah, he went too far that time, but he just wouldn't break character. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was what Andy did. I think Andy broke that barrier.
Yeah. There's this thing called, I want to say, cacophony.
I have no idea what that means, and it sounds like you just gagged.
I think it's called cacophony, and I'm pretty sure that's like a society that live this lifestyle where they're so themselves that they almost make you uncomfortable. It's like that comedy that you're talking about, right? But like this comedian Duncan Trussell, Duncan was saying how he's a part of this group that gathers and does like random shit. Like they'll all gather and go into a bar and they'll all be dressed in their PJs. Yeah. And they'll like go and sing a song as a group, like carol, and just something really stupid and random. But basically what it does is like it makes you check yourself. It makes you realize, damn, like a lot of people sitting there watching someone act like that think like, look how much they don't give a fuck. It's almost inspiring sometimes, Like I
feel like most people want that though,
and that's deep down they do, but they look at themselves and they're down in these shackles or in their tuxes or these suits, and they realize they can't act like that. But deep down, we all want to like be that person, that free spirited person who doesn't give a shit about what other people think,
Right. I feel like I see that a lot in public, and I'm even accountable for this. When people do that, they're just free spirits, or they're their own person. They really don't fit in, and they don't fit in. And I'm not talking about like this weirdo type of person. I'm just talking about this person that really doesn't care about what other people think. They don't care about how they dress. They don't care about like the rules of society. They don't care about, they just don't care. But they're at peace. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of people that see these kind of people out, they get bashed, Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm definitely accountable for doing that. But at the end of the day, I mean, who goes to sleep happy?
I mean, that's such a horrible thing to say, but it's true.
Oh, I know. It's a terrible thing to say.
So many of us don't do that.
And the reason behind that, I was kind of all over the place with that. I apologize. But the reason I say that is because I feel like I catch myself doing this. I'm like, damn, I wish I could do that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you know me pretty well. Most people that do know me on this, listening to this, know that I have tendencies to do that, to just be that person. But, growing up and becoming, we had that whole conversation the other day about that. But I'm definitely more reserved. But when you become more reserved, or you become something that you're forced to become, then you start to hate yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I hate myself. I'm just saying you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, damn.
I get that. Like, I always wonder why you can't act like... Have you ever had someone really close to you that you could just completely act yourself around?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that you feel completely comfortable with anything around?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you have that comfortability with everyone? Like, why does it have to be others more than others and certain people? Well,
I think going back into the Andy Kaufman show, like, I just think that he embodied that. Like, that was him.
It was.
And that's, like,
fully him.
And I think... I've been hearing people talk about what has happened to Jim Carrey, what's going on with Jim Carrey, and this is like the one thing I'm going to say about it, okay? Because I don't know the guy personally, obviously. I think watching that show, listening to Jim Carrey talk, listening about his background, listening to him talk about doing this movie, and just listening to him where he's at now, I think he's happy. I don't think he's out of his mind. I don't think he's loony. I don't think he's off the deep end. I think he's at peace.
Yeah. I think he found it finally.
I think he's happy.
His whole entire life is a perfect example of him seeking it to no end. Like, he was searching for peace his whole life, and he tried it with what he thought he needed was fame and fortune and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he realized when he was going through all that, 50 years later.
I don't think he originally went after it for fame and fortune. I don't think
he didn't.
I think a lot of people liked the idea of doing that.
Yeah, he did it because he liked comedy, but he entertaining people for sure. But
once you get there, you're like, oh, this is
and there's those interviews
sweet.
of him saying like, I want to be able to not walk outside and not be noticed and stuff like that. Saying that, so like he got his dream, right? But then again, it took him so much to find out who he was because of this type of... Maybe it might not happen as much as that grand of a scale to people like us, maybe. Because think about it on a fame level. When you become famous like that, they are in love with the person you walk out on stage to be, you know what I'm saying?
They're in love with the idea of the characters you...
Exactly. Yeah. And like, if this is just completely fake and you're actually a different person inside and you love fucking bird watching and you know, like, if you're just a completely different person than everyone thinks you are.
I've met some pretty fucking cool people that bird watch.
You're just going to be, like, very, you know, unhappy. You're going to realize eventually that you're holding back a lot. Or, like he did, he found out who he was. Like, he says when he was Andy, when he was playing Andy, he was on a vacation from Jim Carrey.
Do you remember when people would go up to him off set or even like in between takes and they'd say, all right, Jim, we're going to do this scene next. He's like, Jim.
Yeah, he wouldn't break character.
Who's Jim?
Yeah, it was crazy.
He didn't do... He left set, but still did that.
He would talk about how he was sitting at the beach or at a restaurant eating fucking breakfast, and while he's clearly playing Andy, but he was saying that Jim Carrey was gone. He was like somewhere else.
And that's
what made me think, like, does he have like multiple personality? Like,
no, but that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of this.
Yeah, it's fully embodying that, you know.
You have to
almost like you fucking
method acting. I think is I would love to do that, right? I would love to be able to do that, but I think you have to commit so much of yourself to when you do that most people I don't think could.
Yeah, I'd want to method act like for like a really healthy, awesome fucking, you know, like completely like do it for the positive reasons. So what I was talking about with the vacation, right? This is a quote. He said when he was playing Andy, he was on a vacation from being Jim Carrey. Meaning he was describing it how when he was playing that person, that carefree person, and he didn't have to go back as Jim Carrey, he was happy, he was content. He felt free, and he said he felt sad that he was leaving that role, you know?
Jim Carrey was still there. Like, you remember when he was talking, like, when he was...
It was like Jim Carrey was screaming for help, all the subliminal signs that he was saying.
Right, he was there. I mean, he even said himself, like, he's like, when I was doing this, I was like, man, was that one too far? Mm-hmm. Did I go too far that time? Or I think I might really get in trouble on that one.
Yeah.
Consciously, I don't think he was actually somebody else. I just think that he wanted to be somebody else so bad.
I definitely don't think consciously he was, but when he talks about how, like, when we were saying he fully embodies that other person, when he was doing that, he at the time was not Jim Carrey. Like, he can literally do stuff that Jim Carrey couldn't get away with.
Do you remember he was saying in the show, he's like, I was chain smoking every day. He's like, I don't even smoke. No,
yeah,
I was
like,
oh
that.
My God.
Yeah, it was changing his behavior, making him do...
I was like, oh my God.
So he can do things, you know, that he can get away with things that he was literally free. He was not following any rules. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it just seems like that's the whole thing that he talks about with his ego. Like, that made him realize that, like, Jim Carrey was just another character. And it was just another character that he didn't like playing. You know what I'm saying?
That was incredible when I heard him say that.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Jim Carrey said in... I think the big stuff, the most powerful scenes in that documentary was Jim Carrey sitting in that chair talking about it.
100%.
And he only had maybe 30... I think Jim Carrey probably only realistically talked...
30 minutes.
I would say less than that. I would say maybe 10 or 15.
Yeah, it was good, though. It was really good.
Because each one was about maybe a minute or two long.
But he narrated the whole thing of it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's why that interview that everyone thought he was crazy, and he says, like, there is no me. There is no... We're not here. This doesn't exist.
Yeah. Basically, that's why I thought you would really enjoy it.
And that really meant, like, that's 100% what he's talking about with, like, these characters that we pretend to play. And we're born into these labels that were put on us from birth. Whether we're...
That was big stuff. I mean, that was big stuff when he said that.
Whether we're A or B, whether we're this religion or that religion, you know,
right.
like...
You know, and you know how I am.
And
like,
these labels define us.
Right. You know how I am when it comes to that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't... I don't really care about that stuff. I don't ever talk about that stuff. And I know that you're very conscious of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And when he started saying that, I was just like, man. He's like, who am I? Who am I? Why do I have the name I have? He's like, and I think it snowballed into that because he's like, what is free will? I don't really think I have free will.
I have that down on here too.
I think that was a big thing too. He's like, I'll grab my beer right here. He grabs his beer and he takes a drink. He goes, I don't really know why I drank that. Is it because I was thirsty or because my brain told me I needed to have some water, some tea, or because it tastes good?
Or did you choose to drink it? Did you make that conscious decision to drink it, or did you think to drink it because your body was thirsty?
Right.
Like,
and
who really is in control?
When he said I don't really believe in free will, I'm like, oh, here we go. Here's some more, like, you know. There was one big thing on Jim and Andy that Jim Carrey that really stuck with me. Now, I watched it twice, okay? I think one of the biggest things that resonated with me. And like I said, I watched it twice. He was talking about his childhood and how he was taking up acting and how not everybody was like his family wasn't really for it, right? Mm-hmm. And he said something that was just resonated so deeply with me personally, where he said that he was talking about how everybody has their 9-to-5 job, right? And how we were talking about this earlier in the recording, and these people have their 9-to-5 job and they go to work because they went to college, because they were told to go to college to get the job that they don't really want, but it pays their bills. And they just do that. They work at this job they don't want for so many years, get a nice pension, get a nice retirement fund, and then they're 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're sitting on a nice stack of cash, and then they're like, well, where the fuck did my life go? You know, I got a nice retirement fund now, and I can retire comfortably, but like, for me, it's about memories, and like, I think Jim said that too. It's about the memories you make during that, and people are so against you doing what is not the norm. Andy Kaufman, right? The outcast of Hollywood during his time. And Jim just talked about how he just would rather fail at something he loved doing.
I have it on here,
yeah. He would rather try and fail at something, not try and fail, but he would rather do something.
I have the quote actually.
Do you? Yeah, read the quote, please.
It says, you can fail at what you don't love, and you can fail at doing something you love. So there's really no choice to be made. You know? You could fail at both things. Yeah. You could be doing something in life that you fucking hate waking up for, or you could be striving for something that you don't necessarily even want. It's just going to be good money. And you can still fail at that. Your job can still fall under, and you can get kicked to the curb. You can still not make it. You can still get drug tested and busted. You know, there's still so many things that someone can do that they can fail. You know, you can get hurt, you can get injured, you can lose your family, you can lose if you can fail at something that you don't even love to do, then why not at least fail trying to do something you do love to do?
Right.
You know, and that makes more sense. I had to write that down because that makes more sense.
So I think you and I are like, when we saw this, we were like literally on the same page. Mm-hmm. Whereas you and I don't necessarily share the same views. We share the same passions and the same thought process when it came to this.
But that's a reason why I've never been able to find a job that I like and find something that I've been interested in. Like, it's because like I love talking to people and I love teaching people. I love, you know, I love to open people's eyes to stuff that they, you know, never knew.
And I think a lot of people don't want to accept it. A lot of people, when it comes to things they don't understand,
because they're scared. I think a lot of the times they're scared and they don't know they are, because they're scared.
I would agree with that.
They're scared to fail. They're scared to fail to do something that they don't think. If you look at the chances of it, what they want to do might be statistically harder, or might be less of a chance that they would succeed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
when you start talking,
when you look at the numbers and you say, like, I'm gonna guaranteed as soon as I graduate college, I'm guaranteed a job at this firm and blah 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 blah. I'll be working, making 6 figures, but I'll be working 80 hours a week. What in the fuck? So you're gonna go to your house that you pay for like how many more hours, and you're gonna half of it's gonna be sleeping. Like you're barely gonna be at your fucking house.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say this.
You're working to have an empty house.
Right. I hear a lot of people say this, like, you got a family? No. You got a kid? No. You got a girlfriend? No. You're just doing work? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh yeah, make your money, make the money. Yeah. Well, yeah, I want to make the money, but I see kids just fucking working themselves to death, man. And I work a lot. Mm-hmm. I work a lot. But I don't know. I do what I need to do to get by, right? And I probably could work more. And it's not because I'm lazy. It's because I want to do stuff with my life, you know? Mm-hmm. I want to do what Jim Carrey did, you know, and just get outside the norm, you know? Mm-hmm. But when they were done shooting it, Jim said something that was super, super powerful. And it was like, well, I guess I have to go back to being Jim now. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure how to do that. I was sitting there and I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to do that? Then you think about it. You just sit there and you think, like, what do you mean he doesn't know how to do that? What do you mean he doesn't know how to do that? And then you keep thinking about it and thinking about it, and it's like, holy shit.
Eventually you step away from yourself.
You literally...
Right?
You think about it, and it's just like, if I went and played Matt Richardson in some fucking movie, and then I came back, and I didn't know who Sam was anymore.
You have to remember how you used to act.
Exactly. What are my mannerisms?
Yeah.
How was my personality? How would I react to this? How would I react to that?
You created those behaviors and habits for yourself that you were
right, and that's oh my god, that was just so crazy to hear
trippy,
that because
isn't
he
it?
didn't. Yeah, you don't need to take psychedelics for that shit right there.
It's
and think about it.
Think
I mean, it's just like
yeah, you're right. Like it's trippy to think that Jim was just the same thing, but he just got it since birth.
He just put so much effort into becoming Andy Kaufman that he became Andy Kaufman. In the very beginning of the documentary, he said that, and this was a little out there for me. This was the only thing I thought that was a little too out there for me in the beginning in the documentary. He said that Jim went to the beach or a lake house or something before he started shooting the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. I think it was a beach or a lake house or something like that. But he said he's looking over the water and he just felt Andy there.
Yeah, that trippy moment he talks about.
Yeah, he felt
when
Andy there, and then Andy said, "Okay, I got this. You can go now, Jim. I got this."
Mm-hmm. And Andy
what?
Fully embodied him at that time.
What?
Yeah, sounds crazy.
I don't think like the spirit of Andy Kaufman took hold of Jim Carrey. I don't. But I think that there was
some align the frequencies right.
I don't know. That's above my intellect. That's not for me to say. I have no thing. I had no. I don't even. It just blows my mind thinking about that. But it's just. And when he said that, I was like, okay, here we fucking go. Jim Carrey's on drugs. Jim Carrey's doing this. Jim Carrey's doing that. And then you sit there and you watch it. And you watch Jim become Andy Kaufman on and off set. Especially off set.
Mm.
And I'm like, what the fuck? How do you just do that?
Yeah, it's strange.
How do you do that? How do you take the personality? I mean, how old was he when he did that? Early 30s?
Yeah, at most. You know, at the end, the only thing that not threw me off, but he gave a really good analogy point. He said something about how, like, maybe I should embody, or maybe I should act like Jesus or something.
Yeah,
right at the end cut.
Mm-hmm.
And
so Jim Carrey was 37 years old when he shot that.
Jesus Christ.
Man on the Moon, right? How do you take a personality that you've developed, as an individual developed, for 37 years? 37 years!
Well, I think it was easy.
And you set it aside. You just set it aside.
I think because he was playing Jim Carrey every day. I think there's someone else. Like, he talks about it. Like, he finally found himself, right?
Right.
Which who he is now. And that's who he always was. But he said he was playing as Jim Carrey was just another character. So that's why he was able to take on like that other role and put Jim Carrey aside too.
Like my point to that was he didn't think like that in 1999. He was one of the biggest fucking names in the 90s.
But don't you think deep down though?
I'm sure deep down he had like,
you gotta definitely stop smiling, and stop joking around like to his close
friends. I'm sure.
Family.
I think deep down he had some definite like
behavior changes when he was behind closed doors.
It's just that documentary changed me.
Like he said, when there's 1,000 people in front of him, he goes away and
Jim comes out.
Like it's kind of like his amplified persona of himself.
Man of 1,000 faces. I mean, he said it so perfectly, and this was like, I related to him so much, man. Again, if you know me, like, I like being a fucking goofball.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the wrong shit, I will say the dumbest things in the most serious of situations because I know it's wrong, but it's funny.
Mm-hmm. And
I'll get flack for it. I'll get made fun of for it. And most people that don't know me, like, think I'm doing that on purpose. And I don't know if that's a personality disorder of mine. I don't know. But I love making people just forget for a second. Mm-hmm. People just want to forget about their lives. Mm-hmm. And I think that was so cool when he said that. Mm-hmm. Like, just to take people out of that. And I like making people laugh. I like making people smile. Am I a comedian? No. But it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think that's what Jim was saying. He was just, I don't want to say he was the butt of every joke, because he wasn't, but nobody really took him seriously, you know?
Yeah.
He was one of the biggest names in Hollywood, you know? He was a very, very, very good actor. I mean, look at Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I mean, he got an Academy Award for that.
Hmm.
He got an Oscar with the Academy Award. I mean,
I gotta see that still.
oh my God, you haven't seen that?
Mm-mm.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I don't know. I don't feel like crying.
Oh, you're gonna cry.
Yeah, I know.
It is.
I'm not ready.
It was funny because when Jim was doing that movie, they talked about it a little bit in the documentary. They were one of the writers or one of the whoever on the set was like, "I'm shooting this, and I know you're Jim Carrey, but what you're portraying right now, like I feel that. Like, how are you doing this? Like, remember when they were in the dressing room in Jim and Andy, and they were like kind of doing some maybe practicing, I don't know, for the movie, and Jim and Andy Kaufman, aka Jim Carrey, and the guy that plays Andy Kaufman's dad were talking in that trailer while Jim was getting his makeup done, and the makeup artist started crying because she's like, that just reminds me of me and my dad.
Maybe I guess he's just really, really skilled in doing that, but I mean, I don't know, unless he's that good to where he can trick himself into, you know, his whole life he was confused with who he was, and you can see it in his comedy. You can see it how he was almost desperately trying to do whatever it took to get people to laugh and entertain them. Yeah. And he says it himself, he wasn't happy inside. He wasn't getting the joy that he wanted, you know, like he wanted to be a good actor, he wanted to be loved by many, and he didn't like that he had to change who he was, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we all need to kind of realize, is that we all kind of should check ourselves and realize maybe something we're doing, you know, can be changed. I think just the people you encounter every day, I feel like the world would be a lot different if everyone was doing something they loved, you know.
That's
I guess we'll end it on that note.
That's some heavy stuff, though. But yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do this again sometime.
We need to.
We'll pick another topic and
take me out for drinks and maybe dinner, and we'll just see where the podcast really takes us.
Sounds good.
Anything? Yeah. With Matt.